Hey there, how are you doing? It's so good to be with you this evening. I think it's 17 days till Christmas, Mahmood, isn't it? But we've got a
It,
great show.
absolutely, and that's a nice little bit of an intro there. So I thought did you have your air guitar going, Joe?
I did have my egg time. I could see the 30-second thingy going on in the corner. So I hope you like our new music. Tell us what you think. But welcome. It's really good to see you again. I'm really pleased you're here. So don't forget join in the show with the chat because we are talking about getting ready for 2021. And this is the first of two shows we're going to do. So we're going to talk about it again next week, but we're taking on different aspects. So this week, it's all about thinking about what we can learn from this year going forward and a loads more besides, because we've got an amazing special guest.
Absolutely.
And then next week, we're thinking about thinking big.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think a lot of people, I don't know if you're finding it, Joe, probably either written off 2021. It's been a bit of a let's hide under the duvet type year. It's been a bit of a let me put my hands over my eyes and pretend it's gone away. But 2021, I think it's a mixed bag for lots of businesses, and don't write it off. And this is the time to take that breath in and actually start thinking about what's gone before, as well as thinking about what's ahead of us.
Yeah, because the very least we've got some learning out of it, and it's been an experience year. A year of all sorts of stuff, of different challenges, different experiences, and if we're here today and we're still going and we're still pushing things forward, I think that's something to be celebrated in itself. And hopefully, the first vaccine was in the UK. That happened today, didn't it? So fingers crossed, 2021, a much better year.
Yeah, I think absolutely there. And I think in terms of as a marker, when you're reviewing that year, if you've managed to get to this stage of 2020 and you've survived, you've washed your face, so to speak, you've not gone under, then I think you ought to give yourself a very well-deserved pat on the back, because I think when it all started, if I go to those quiet times back in about mid-March, nobody quite knew what was going on ahead. It's all relatively calm. And then literally from there to now, there's been like a roller coaster ride there. So having survived, having managed to not go under, I think that's got to be testimony to a lot of people out there for their resilience and the way they've conducted themselves.
Yeah, and the way everybody's collaborated as well. I think there's been a real sense of community support out there in businesses. I've really felt it. It's great that we connected more strongly as well this
Absolutely,
year.
Yeah.
Started in March, and we've been collaborating, and I think it's been a year of collaboration and mutual support between the business community as well. So yeah, lots to think about. And what we'd love if you're watching, and we'd really love you to put in the chat, in the comments, how you found this year in terms of what were your biggest learnings, and some positive learnings as well, some positive outcomes, because they will be there. So do share them with us, and we will have a look at them. We'll comment, and we'll think about those as we go forward in the show.
Yeah, I think that it'd be great to actually hear that in terms of people's standout moment in terms of what they've learned, something positive. If you want to share something that didn't go quite as well, we're happy to get that mixture. I think it's a strange thing about human beings, I do it myself sometimes, is that we tend to focus on the stuff that's not going quite well, the stuff that's actually challenging us, the stuff that's causing a bit of anxiety, the stuff we don't think we're actually quite achieving. And we tend to gloss over, for some reason, the stuff that has gone well, the stuff that we are doing well. And I think any review, has got to have I know, what do you call it, Joe? Like a 360? You're going to have a really all-encompassing overview about how your business has gone.
Yeah, it's about balance, isn't it? It's looking at the good stuff, the stuff that was somewhere in between, and the not so good stuff, and saying it's not just about looking at it in itself. It's about saying, okay, what can I take from this, and what can I do differently going forward? What can I do more of going forward? And it's tempting, isn't it, not to do a review, especially after such a challenging year. Oh, hi, happy Tuesday. Same to you. Thank you. Yeah. So, Richard, what's been your biggest learning of this year? Tell us in the comments, because
good question.
I think a lot of people put off doing a review at the end of the year and just wanted to get it out of the way and just want to get on to the next year, in any year, never mind one that we've had like now. But I think it's important that we still do it.
Yeah, don't leave it till the 31st of December when we have that, when the Big Ben chimes coming up till midnight. And that's when we do the old Lang Syne review. You think about it now, but have have a balanced perspective on there. I know we got a lot of tailwinds coming out, so we've got a big change happening on the 1st of January next year. So that B word, which we'll mention at some point, no doubt, Brexit. So lots of change, lots of things going on. But I like the way you describe it, Joe, as well, about this learning environment. You know, lots of companies, don't they? It's all about as much as what you can learn and take away from things as it is about, you know, things go wrong, things going well. It's what we take away and actually absorb and apply and move forward.
Yeah, and we're also going to be joined by Sarah Salter, who is an awesome coach. Like, she's properly qualified. She knows what she's doing. You know, she's a real pro. I think anybody can go out there these days and call themselves a coach. But when you hear Sarah, you're going to hear something really, you know, really different. And her experience is awesome. So Sarah's going to be talking to us as well about, from a leadership point of view, what can you do to think about the year that you've just had and build on that and learn forwards, which is what it's all about, isn't it? It's just business is about learning and building on
that moment in that green room. So I'm intrigued if we get a chance to ask her about the Jedi reference, which I know many people have actually referred to her as. I think I've got some idea why it is, and I think it's very well deserved. But she might be toying with the Battlestar Galactica at the moment. So when she comes on, we can ask her about that and lots of wonderful things there. Where would you normally start then, Joe, when you do a review of the year?
So I tend to do a brain dump. I flip through the calendar and just remind myself of everything that the diary, everything I've done. And there are things that I find I've forgotten about and that's a good thing to do in itself, because as you're getting ready to promote for next year, there might be some activities or some great things you did for clients that you can actually use this time now to get some testimonials, some case studies together for. There might be some clients that you did some work back at the beginning of the year and you're wondering how they're getting on, and you know, maybe it's time to reconnect and see how they're doing ready for 2021. So there's all sorts of benefits beyond the learning that you get from looking back. So I usually start with my diary. Where do you start?
I've never actually used my diary before. Actually, I sometimes have a quick scan through there, but I think having that diary reference here, I think probably it's a similar situation to yourself. Look back in terms of meetings you might have had, conversations you've had at certain points, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, or whether it's a sign of, you know, increasing maturity. I use that very loosely. Is trying to actually remember in detail what you've done on a month-by-month basis. I think gets difficult, especially if you've got a very frenetic business life. But I think I like the diary approach. It's probably talking to other people as well. So in my team, I'd probably have a conversation. We normally have staff meetings. And we'd probably have a conversation about how they feel the year has gone. So other people's opinions, other people feeding back. Obviously, you've got the factual evidence about how your bank balance is looking. You can always look back at that. You can look at your numbers, but I think it's a whole combo of things there as well too. You know, so you've got some connection with what's occurred.
Yeah, I like to be quite creative as well. I know you would you expect that probably from me, but getting the coloured pens out and mind mapping the year that's gone by. Richard's saying, I learned this year you can't do it all on your own. We've grown this year with accelerated growth. Plan for next year. That's fantastic. Well done. But I have to say, it's all about the team. Definitely, we can do so much together. And I think there's been something about this year where people genuinely have pulled together, both inside businesses and between businesses. And also, you know, customers have been hugely supportive as well in many cases. So it's good to get all of that down. I like to mind map, get some coloured pens out, and also sort of just draw the year, sketch, doodle, make some notes, and just really take some time to sit down and think about it.
It's a good way, I suppose, to organising those thoughts, isn't it? Because if it's all in your head, we talk about that when we talk about setting objectives, setting goals. You need to get it out of there, open up the lid and dump it on a piece of paper. Probably the same with that, how the year has gone. Had gone even.
Yeah. So firstly, you know, as we've said, it clears your head, but as well as clearing your head, it gives you, if you put it down and then come back to it after a while, it might be a few hours or overnight or whatever, a week would be fantastic. You just get, and you reread what you've written, you just get that sense of distance and perspective, and you see fresh things, you see fresh patterns, that you wouldn't have seen if you kept it all in your head. So it gives you that sense of objectivity. And that's what we need, is to also come above, the day-to-day and get some, so we can have more of an aerial view of the business and an aerial view of the year. And, we'll talk about this next week, is start to stretch that aerial view out so that we're thinking into the future as well.
Yeah, I think it's very similar, isn't it? When we talked, I think in earlier broadcasts, we talked about if you want to decide which way forward and how you're going to progress forward, you need to actually have a look at what's going on at the moment. So very much in terms of that, don't get too bogged down in the detail of what you've done. It's broad brush strokes that have gone on. But if you don't understand what's happening now and historically, it becomes very difficult to know what to build on, what to avoid, what things are actually good for your business, and also involves probably a lot more drilling down in terms of those customers that you've interacted with, you've exchanged things, sold goods to, which ones have been good for you in value terms and relationship building, which ones have been a drain on your resources, ones that you might either see if you can improve that relationship, improve that profitability. So yeah, really, I think getting down and dirty with looking at the analysis and not to get drowned by it, isn't absolutely essential.
Yeah, getting honest, and the analysis, shows you objectively. It's one way of looking at what's going on. How you felt about it actually is another measure of how the year's been, and it might have been a year of, I'm sure, of for many of it being up and down as well. And the other thing you can do, of course, is to, if you have a plan, is see how you did against the plan overall, but you can still do an end of year review if you don't have a plan, using all the things that we've said. So it's a good investment in time. I think it's really important, and to really think about what you're going to take forward. So what are the things you're going to start doing as a result of that review? What are you going to stop doing because it's not helped? And what are you going to continue doing? And also try and fill in the gaps. Were there things that you wanted to do but either didn't get round to? Maybe they were frustrated due to the situation that we've all been in this year. But what were those big ideas that you really wanted to get off the ground? And how can you take those forward in 2021 and not let the same things stop you?
I mean, a lot of big questions there. I would probably suggest that you need to probably get away from your immediate surroundings if you can do that. So ideally, if you've can actually afford that luxury of getting away from your office, if you're working at home, go to a quiet space. It might be worthwhile 3 or 4 hours going to hotels. I think we're still allowed to travel to hotels, but get some quiet space, get some thinking time. Don't get distracted by the phones. Don't get distracted by your day-to-day work. And it's really worthwhile investing that time in coming up with those key questions. What do you think to the idea of actually having the questions first before you start looking for the answers, Jo?
Yeah, I think that's really good, because if you start looking for the answers when you've not thought about what the questions are, it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole in one direction, look at some things and then sort of not see the rest of it. So jot some questions down, and we can help with those questions as well. So maybe some of the questions we're asking: how's the year been in terms of the performance and the metrics? How have you felt about it? What are those ideas, and so on? What questions would you suggest, Mahmood?
I'd probably say the questions would be, if you've never done planning, if you've never done a business growth here, my questions would be probably, if you were to think forward at the next 12 months, what would be the key areas that you'd want to look at? So typically there's the financial outcome of your business, so you can measure that in terms of profitability, cash flow. You might look at the customer angle, so in terms of customer growth, type of customers that you've got, customers you work with. There's going to be your team, how they performed. Have they been a stable workforce? Have there been good things? Have they grown in that respect? Delivery to the customer. So I think last week we talked about the balanced scorecard. I would probably take a balanced scorecard approach when I'm actually asking those questions, and asking the questions across the board. Have some qualitative data in there as well. So it's not just about financial outcomes. It's not just about the other aspects. What's important in your business, and how do you think you perform that? Obviously, if you've got a plan already there, that's a great reference point to map it against the plan. If you haven't got a plan and it's your first foray into that, then just think about broad areas of your business that you've got to get right and map. And that's the questions or areas that I would look at.
Yeah, and if people are listening or watching and they haven't seen last week's show that we did about key performance indicators, maybe, go back and have when you finish watching this show, go back and have a look at that one as well, and that will give you all sorts of other ideas in terms of measurement. And one of the things we do in the Business Growth Club program, which we're launching again in January next year, is we ask our members to do a SOAR analysis. And what SOAR, that's SOAR, not like a saw that you have, on body parts. So SOAR, which is thinking about your strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. And that's actually from the field of positive psychology, particularly from appreciative inquiry, which means, looking for the good, because our attention, it's not about not learning from the stuff that's gone wrong, but our effort, our energy goes in the places that we focus. So if we focus on doing more of the good and put our energy into doing that and making sure the more negative stuff isn't holding us back, then that can really work. So if people want to have a go at this as they're listening, or maybe afterwards, it's what are your strengths? So where have you been, really strong? There might be some strengths that have surprised you. There might be some strengths that are really core, and have always been there. What are the opportunities? So they're external. Also, threats go into the opportunity category, because a threat, is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? Depends how you look at it. It depends how you play it. So in this method, what we do is we turn a threat into an opportunity. Your aspirations, they speak for yourself. Where did you want to be? Where do you want to be in the future? And what results have you achieved? So that's quite a nice tool to use. And people who sit that down and do it in Business Growth Club and elsewhere, they've all found it really useful, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, you might recognise some of those acronyms from the old conventional SWOT analysis. And within that SOAR bit, you are going to have strengths, turning into opportunities. Yeah. So it's not just a four segmented thing. There's a bit of interplay between the four segments there as well.
It supersedes it, in fact, because strengths and weaknesses are the internal bits. Opportunities and threats are external. But as I say, there's sort of this: is it an opportunity or a threat? It depends on perspective. So in SOAR, the weaknesses and the threats both go into the opportunity box. But what you do that you don't do in SWOT, which is why SOAR is a more contemporary approach, is you think about going forward, how does that play into what you want with the aspirations and the results that you want to achieve in the future? So it's quite nice. It's a bit different as well, because I think.
Yeah, I mean, SWOT is a bit. I wouldn't say it's tired. Doesn't mean it has no purpose there. But I think a lot of people still use it more of a listing device as opposed to a relative device there as well.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just adding to that, Joe. Those people who, if you want to hop on to check out the Business Growth Club, we do have regular tips that we do share with people. So if you want to sign up to the newsletter, get a feel for what's going on, then you're going to get some of this content sent into your inbox on a weekly basis as well.
Yeah, that's good. I also think, whether it's SOAR or something, doesn't matter, but disrupting how you'd normally do things. So
yeah, absolutely.
It is a good thing in itself. So if you normally do a SOAR, do a SWOT, just disrupt and change things up. As you know, as an innovator, I'm a big believer in if we always think the way we've always thought, then we always get what we've always got, so it's actually really good just to change things up and do something different. Whatever you usually do, try and do something a little bit different with a twist.
And if it's sounding overawing, everyone, just remember this: if you've not done reviews before, and that's the sort of thing you just think about it in your head without sitting down, even if you just tip your toe in the water and sat down and thought, right, half an hour, I'm just going to look at my diary, see what's going on, and I'll make a list. That's a great first step to make.
It is. And I think this applies to, I don't know, Mahmood, you might disagree, but it applies to solopreneurs, it applies to micro businesses, just as it does, the giant intergalactic corporate.
Yeah, you're quite right. I think from, it's quite easy to fall into a trap of thinking, like, it's only me, I'm just about the beginning of my business journey. So all these things that people talk about doesn't really apply to me. If you're a business, if you're looking to make money from people, if you're looking to sell something, to provide a service, if you're in the charity, not-for-profit, private, doesn't matter. Those lessons that the big boys do, if you want to use that phrase, are just as adaptable to you, whatever size you are. And all businesses, whatever size, have got certain things in common. And planning is certainly top of the tree. reviews, keeping an eye on your numbers. Makes no odds whether you're a small solopreneur or a large multinational. The magnitude might change, but the actual underlying principles are exactly the same.
Yeah. So I don't want to put you on the spot, so because I've only just thought of this, but what would you say your biggest lessons learned then? If you were to pick something to start, stop, and continue, what would you be? I'm happy to play in return, by the way.
Okay, so what the biggest thing I've learned, what to improve on, or just the biggest thing?
Yeah. So what would you, as a result of what you've learned, what would you stop doing in 2021? What would you start doing, and what would you continue doing?
Good point. I would probably, one thing I've learned certainly here is that in terms of frog eating. So, for example, that what I continue to do is to say that it's trying to be less of the shiny bauble syndrome and more focus on less things as opposed to lots of things. So that I would stop trying to do 20 things at the same time and taking on 20 projects. So that's one thing I've learned. One thing that I would continue to do is to continue to plan, innovate, keep an eye on the numbers, and customer service. For me, customer service is the top of the tree for me, and that's what's managed to keep me going through this year. And so that's one thing that I will continue to do. What I would try and do less of is trying to do too many things and actually just cut down and focus on fewer. So less is more as such.
Yeah. So what would you start doing then?
What I would start doing. Let me pause on that one, Joe. I'll come back to you on that one. Well, let me put you on the spot. What about yourself?
Yeah, and I've only just, as I say, the question's only just occurred to me, so I haven't really thought about it, although I did have a bit of extra thinking time when you were asking. So things I would stop would probably be spreading myself too thin and getting, thinking about what else I can delegate out and get some support with, so I can do more of the things I enjoy and the things that I'm good at. And I think, what would I continue doing? That's dead easy for me, and I would continue working with you, because that's definitely been, I've had there have been many highlights of this year, and I've really enjoyed the stuff that we've done together and that we do together. So that's really, really good. So we said we're going to keep this going forward. So assuming you'll still have me and continue doing what we do together. And then what would I start, isn't it? That's the other thing. What am I going to start doing? I think is just being more consistent with some of the things that I do. So I could be more, I think I'm pretty good, but I could be more consistent with social media. I could be, more consistent with various things like that. So if I stop doing some of the things as spreading myself too thin, that means I can do some more of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because everything is intertwined, isn't it? Because if you inject more productivity, more efficiency, focus there, and the rest of it, it just liberates time, the resource that you don't have too much of to do all those other things as well. I would definitely say, by the way, before we bring on Sarah from the Green Room, that one of my highlights for this year, I know that wasn't the question, was actually, I wouldn't say stumbling across you, because we didn't stumble across each other in that way, but finding you and actually having a conversation with you and developing a very good positive business partnership. And that would be, for me, not just the highlight of this year, but one of quite several years. So I've had lots of business partners in my time that I've had my fingers burnt with, but at this moment in time, Joe, you still put up with me. So yeah, that's a good highlight for me.
Thank you. Well, it's definitely right back at you, and so definitely mutual. And I've really enjoyed it. So we're going to keep, and looking forward to what we're doing in January as well. And I was going to mention, because you mentioned about productivity and efficiency, and I think that's essential to be part of the review. Is where have we all spent time where we could have been spending? The time only comes around once. So what else could we have been doing with that time that sometimes where we're doing the low value added stuff? And I've started using an app called Toggl. That's TOGGL. Yeah, I've no affiliation. I don't get paid anything. I think there's a free version. I think it's not expensive, where I'm just tracking my time, whatever it is I'm doing, not just work time, but the other stuff as well. And when you start to see how much time you spend on admin, actually, or you're doing things that don't necessarily add value to growth, it's really surprising. So I suppose that's a form of KPI, isn't it? It's a form of metric.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to add this on because we're going to carry on sort of on another things like that Monty Python sketch. What did the Romans ever do for us? But I would definitely say, for me, what I started and will continue to do, apart from taking my own advice that I give to other people, is about productivity and efficiency. So investing more in technology and systems and systemizing processes, especially as your team gets bigger, you've got to do that. So yeah, I'm looking to finish the year on a very positive note as I started the year.
Yeah, same here, and I hope everybody else is doing that too. So let us know, what are you going to be doing differently in 2021 from what you've been doing this year? What are your plans? What are you looking forward to? And how are you going to make a really good start in January? What are you planning now to get ahead with? Because we've still got time. Christmas isn't quite here yet.
Absolutely.
And there's time to get match fit, get ahead of the game, and really get some stuff set up. So talking about things, should we bring Sarah on?
We shall do that. In that area of positivity and love that we've created, it only seems fair and right that we bring on superstar Sarah. Sarah, good evening to you.
Hi guys. Hi, nice to see you. Hi everybody. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Great to have you. Now, Sarah and I first met. I don't know if you know this actually, Mahmood. You probably do. We first met when Sarah was HR director. Is that the right? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Northumbrian Water. Oodles and noodles ago, probably around 2014, 15, something like that.
Yeah, we met in a castle in Northumberland, actually.
We did.
And you were doing some work on creativity and innovation with our senior leadership team, Jo.
That's right. We did some profile-y stuff and some value stuff, didn't we?
Had you forgotten about that bit?
I had, but it's nice you brought it back. Really nice you brought it back.
Yeah.
It was up some steps because I can remember because I had one of my really big wheelie suitcases full of Post-it notes and I had to put up the turret or something. So anyway,
2012, I think that probably was 2012. I think, yeah.
But today you tell us about what you're doing today and all about the things that you're involved with.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks for that. And I think, the reason I got involved with Business Growth Club was with my independent coaching business in mind. But I'll come to that in a second, because I'm really happy to have reached that stage in life where I'm living the dream with my portfolio career. So I do three things, really. I'm a non-executive director and a trustee of two organisations, and I'm a yoga teacher. And I wrap all of that up to share that with my 30-odd years of business experience as well, through my executive coaching practice, working predominantly with people who are in a midlife, mid-career stage, typically fairly senior people in organizations. So I can carry on and say a little more about that if you like. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the sort of things that people come to coaching with me for, it wouldn't be about performance delivery on a project. It wouldn't be about something like that. It would be much more psychological coaching, about making logical sense of the way they are thinking about a problem or a challenge or a conundrum or something like that. And it probably falls into two main categories. It might be somebody who either has been promoted into a senior leadership role or wants to be promoted into a senior leadership role. And often for those clients, it's about personal impact, it's about influencing, it might be about authentic leadership, it might be about imposter syndrome, which is vastly common. And it might be about just understanding the systemic environment they're working in and getting traction in the organization. So that's one bucket of things that quite often come with people who are either have been promoted or are looking to get up to the next level. And then I guess the other broad category of people that I find myself working with are people who are probably successful and have a hunch that if something were to shift, they could be happier.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a real interesting tension between, you know, and I'd like to come back to when you talked about negative mindset earlier on, Mahmood, later on. But you know, many people have worked really hard to become very successful in some way, and that doesn't automatically, they find out, mean that they are happy or that they wish to carry on doing that to create their the life that they would like, perhaps for the third act. The third act. I was hearing Ian Rankin being interviewed on the radio the other day, and he talked about, as he writes his detective novels, he puts clues all the way through the novels that start to unravel as the mystery starts to be solved. And I think for this kind of coaching client that I work with, it is about as if life were a perfectly written novel, and what we're doing now, we're in that stage of unraveling everything that's brought people to where they are today, to figure out what's going to happen in that final third of the book. Really, how is that all going to fit together? So those are the sort of two main people. I work with a range of different people. Thinking about, those are probably the two main types of work that I seem to be attracting and that I seem to be working with people on.
Sarah, can I just pick up on that point you were saying about, because obviously one of the themes tonight is about the reviews. So that negative mindset, what's your thoughts about that? Is that because people feel they can't behave authentically as their natural selves, so they've got a level of success, and they feel that if they show a side of their personality and character, somehow that might make it all come tumbling down?
Oh, there's just loads and loads of reasons why all of that comes into play. I think probably give 2 or 3 thoughts that might come together with this. So taking it back to when we're born and when we're babies, right? We learn all the time to scan what's happening around us for things that might cause us harm or distress. And that's where that you talked about, people have that negativity bias when they're looking at performance and looking at all the things that have gone wrong. That's that learned muscle about looking for all of the downside on things, and people can become very successful only focusing on that muscle, playing a very defensive game. That is absolutely one strategy. It doesn't bring joy. But if we then say, okay, how does that play out with the way people operate in organizations? Playing that defensive game, playing that what do I need to do to succeed around here in order to be successful, and so on. People can sometimes twist themselves out of shape to fit a way of being or a style or a culture, and sometimes lose touch with who was that child full of hope and passion and opportunity back in the day, and what happened to all of that opportunity and positivity as they become twisted out of shape to fit the operating environment that they're working in. And so part of the unraveling of that, I sometimes think of it as like a number of different balls of wool all wrapped up together. And through coaching work, people start to unravel the orange wool and the red wool and the blue wool and the green wool, and to be able to make sense of, it's not all a big muddle and a mess, and to be able to understand what are they playing out, what are they bringing to their current environment that may be sabotaging their success. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
guys?
That's like a degree of unpicking.
Sorry,
Jo, you go.
No, I've just got so many questions. That was brilliant. So when you started and you said about, they've worked really hard and they've got here, but are they happy? That sort of reminded me of, I think it's Stephen Covey, of leading your ladder up the wrong wall. And that's a phrase I've remembered since the 1920s, since my 20s. And it really is absolutely fascinating. And also when you were saying about people twisting themselves into shape to fit in with what they think, we have a huge number of small businesses and small business entrepreneurs, very successful, listening to the show. And sometimes they say, well, you know, corporates wouldn't want to do business with me, and they feel they've got to twist themselves into shape to do business with a corporate. But what I say is that actually sometimes you can be something that corporates wouldn't normally have or be, and you being you is fantastic in itself. It brings something fresh. So there were just some thoughts really that came to mind. Sorry, they're not deep and meaningful, but
quite deep.
The third thing and the final thing you'll be pleased to hear is you are, and I know you invest heavily in your training, your understanding, your qualifications. You are a qualified psychological coach. What is the difference? Because I know there is a positive difference, but anyone can set up and call themselves a coach. So how do people find the right coach, and how do they know that they've got the right, you know, someone who's qualified, and what is really the difference? Sorry, there's quite a lot there, but I'll be quiet now and I'll drink my tea. And
yeah, so what do you look for? So how do you
Shall I catch that one? Yeah, okay, great. So I think when it comes to qualification, for sure, you can go on a 3-day course and become a qualified coach. But I think when we're looking at the professional highest standing of coaches in the world, there are 2 organisations that anybody looking for a coach would look at. So there is either the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, or as the International Coach Federation. And so those are the 2 leading bodies for the highest level of professional standing for coaches, and within that there are levels of achieving a standard of being a coach. And you can be a practitioner. I'm a senior practitioner, so that requires 500 hours of evidence learning against, believe it or not, 98 coaching competencies. And it requires supervision, so the professional coach will regularly talk about maintaining confidentiality, but talk about the coaching issues they're dealing with a qualified supervisor, if you like, to keep that all clean and to stop the mixing of your own lens as a coach on the client's lens on the world, and so if you like, to keep everything in the right place. And then there is also there is a level above that is supreme. You have to have probably written academic papers, and that will never be me. I'm a practitioner. I'm a senior practitioner. So I would say look for European Mentoring Coaching Council or International Coach Federation and check out the levels, and you can go to their websites for that. But I think beyond qualification, the single most important thing is about what is created between the 2 of you in the relationship. So in the way, Mahmood and Joe, that you guys feel that you've created a synergy, that you can work together, that your values are aligned, and that your way of being in the world is aligned. I think with a coaching client, it's very common for me to have what's called a chemistry conversation. I would offer a free 30-minute chemistry conversation when it's an hour, as we start to understand each other. And it's almost, I think it's a bit like a dance or an orchestra. There's no point me being someone who wants to dance a jive if somebody else wants to dance a waltz, to use a Strictly analogy.
Yeah.
And so there's something about the energy or the pace or the way we express ourselves creates a something other, something synergistic, and that's, you know, that either works or it doesn't work. And if you are like me, working to an ethical code, so I work to the European Mentoring and Coaching Council's ethical code, then it would be wrong to progress with somebody where that wasn't going to be the right coach for them, so it didn't feel like the right sort of value would be brought. So the ethical code again is on the EMCC website. It's long, but it's all about the right thing. And I think, you know, that is very important. Values are incredibly important in an effective coaching relationship.
So there's got to be that degree of compatibility, obviously, between yourself. What do you call them? Do you call them just clients or coachees, or?
Well, I think about people as clients because that has, I think there's an honouring. You know, it's a vow relationship, whereas I think coachee could be a little bit teacher tutor.
Okay.
Learner, and for some people that might be their style. For me, these people are really valued clients, customers, people that I really value and cherish, rather than I've got something I can teach you about, which I think, so I would talk about a coaching client rather than a coachee, which feels a bit done to. The way that I work with coaching, it's created together, it's done with, it's a journey, it is something that isn't known at the start of a coaching session, and the insights and the insights on the progress are co-created during the conversation. So it's very rare, unless I've contracted with a client, it's very rare that I would go into a coaching session knowing what we were going to cover, unless we have said, right, there's this little bit of psychological theory that would be useful. Shall we start next time with a bit of a, a bit of a sharing of that? But usually it's emergent. It's, we see, and when people join me for coaching sessions, there might be what I would call a presenting issue, something that they would like to be coached about, and yet sometimes before we can get to that issue that we've contracted for, other things are in the way. They might have just come out of an exceptionally difficult or upsetting situation, or might need to just sound this idea out because it's in their mind, and until they've got that out of the mind, there is no space yet for this thing. So to be able to work very flexibly and emergently, knowing that ultimately we'll get to the agreed coaching topic, but not being so rigid that that's all we're going to talk about. Because if they have something else present in and we've all been there, where you just need to get something off your chest, or there's just this thing I'd like to talk out with you, then that's perfect, because coaching is a thinking space. It's a held reflective space.
So a question for you then, Sarah, in terms of the thinking approach, if you've got, let's say, businesses that we say that have got to do a review about what's going on, positive, negative, is there, probably the answer is no, but I'm going to ask you anyway, is there a tip that you would share to how to help businesses get into that learning zone where they actually do that review?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's about, there's a bit of neuroscience in this, Joe, you will know all about this, I'm sure, where, the way the chemicals in our brain work is that we can be hijacked by things that go wrong. And so, and this is a whole subject in itself, so I'll keep this really short. So for us to be able to think divergently and expansively, to create that learning mindset and that curiosity and that explorative, I wonder what might happen if I did this next year in my business plan, or I wonder if that group over there might be a possible client group. We need to be thinking in a way that is creating all of the positive chemicals in our brains, not the adrenaline and the cortisol, the fight or flight, chasing a rabbit down a hole. So there are for sure things that I will sometimes work with clients on, breath work, for example, to help them generate the positive mindset chemicals in the brain that allow them to think more expansively rather than, and we all know adrenaline and cortisol are the killers there, because when the brain is running on adrenaline and cortisol, a couple of things happen. First of all, the neurological pathways between the survive part of our brain and the create, innovate, relate part of our brain physically narrow. And so we can't think straight because we're so busy focused on that one thing that we're unable to broaden our ideas. And that's why, for example, walking coaching, getting out when we're able to and do some walking, talking coaching is a great thing to do, because somehow the outdoors environment creates that different thinking. So you lend that across into, if someone's doing a year-end review of the business, how do you almost put your brain on a rinse cycle so that the thought limiting chemicals just get rinsed away and you become more open to possibility with to use the other the rest and digest, the feel good chemicals, because that's where, when we're in that state, we start to see possibility, opportunity, positivity. In another conversation, I would call that mental fitness. Create our mental fitness, our positive intelligence, to work with that Jedi mindset.
Yes, talk to us about Jedi mindset and Jedi mind tricks and all of that good stuff. What's
Brilliant.
the secret?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just gave the secret away, really. It's not a secret, it's just something that we have to know how to do. And yeah, so I talked a bit about the negativity bias early on. And I brought a couple of friends along. I didn't know if I was going to show them or not. And this is our comedy moment. So I have Darth Vader here.
Okay.
So for anyone who isn't a Star Wars fan, which might have included me at one stage, yeah, this is the big baddie. This is the saboteur. This is the guy who's going to create stress. He's going to create adrenaline, cortisol, and make you fight him and take you way away from being your best version of who you could be. So this is the bad guy. And then I've actually brought along Yoda. And Yoda is the ultimate Jedi in Star Wars. So the Jedis are the people who work from the place of goodness, of wisdom, of knowledge, of insight. These are our absolute stars, and Yoda is the counsel to the Jedis. And so to get into our Jedi mindset, it is about knowing when Darth Vader might have hijacked us and we might be in adrenaline and cortisol mode, and it takes us 20 minutes to get rid of that through the body, and how to shift ourselves into Yoda mode. And that's through doing the things I was just talking about with, it might be breath work, it might be energy, it might be anything that creates the positive chemicals in our body. And you know, I could talk till the pub shuts, or they are shut.
It might sound a bit, some of that might sound a bit woo-woo, but it's not. It is, you know, it is scientifically supported that we, under certain circumstances, we produce these chemicals that have this impact on our thinking and on our physiology, and in these circumstances we produce the others. So, you know, the energy and the breath work is about changing the physiological state, which is all scientifically, you know, Harvard Medical School and elsewhere supported.
Completely.
Diaphragmatic breathing anyway. I mean, I believe, you tell me, Sarah, if I'm wrong, that most people tend to breathe from the upper part of their body, not diaphragmatically, and therefore from a purely from an efficiency point of view, from a centering point of view, from a stress relieving point of view, even just changing your pattern of your breathing will have just a positive impact on everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. When we look at the, I can't remember the name of them just at the moment, but we look at the neurons that send the messages from the brain to the body, and we look at the neurons that send the messages from the body to the brain. There are 3 times as many message sending neurons from the body to the brain as there are from the brain to the body. So you know, when someone says to you, oh, yeah, there's things people say, like, oh, get over it, or it'll be all right, or don't worry, or I don't know what you bothered for. The brain hears that, but it's not very strong at sending relaxed messages to the body. Whereas when we might do just literally a couple of minutes of breath work, or have a big stretch, or go for a run, or go for some fresh air, then actually the body gets all those positive chemicals and sends a really strong message to the brain that says it's okay. And then we can think straight.
Yeah, I mean,
and we all know it. We you know, it's all of our experience of being human.
It's
when we're in the grip. Yeah,
it's intuitive, but we forget, and it's important we remind ourselves. And I think there's all sorts of new research. Well, you know, some of it new newer than others, but around the gut and the gut biome and all of that, and the connection with the brain and how we think and how our neurons fire. But so that's awesome. I mean, we could talk about that for ages, but love Darth Vader. Who'd have thought the same guy that did the Green Cross Code could bring so many stress chemicals to our lives? Who knew that? So why did you then, as independent coach, experienced businesswoman, decide to join the Business Growth Club? Why did you decide to join, and what, if anything, did you get out of it?
Yeah. And I found myself being in a sort of slightly different place to some of the people that I met on the Growth Club, because I had come from big corporate, and so on the one hand, I know about KPIs, and I know more about efficiency than I care to ever even try and remember. And and so there's one level of knowing, which is a very cerebral level of, I learned that in corporate. And then there is a level of translation that's needed to say, and what does that mean now in this new context? And also in the corporate world, there are lots and lots of people in the organization that do lots and lots of things that, as many people who are watching this will know, when you're in your own business, you have to do it all yourself. You have to chase the people who haven't paid you yet. You have to do your own accounts. You have to submit. And so there's lots and lots to learn, and there's lots and lots to think about. So I did Business Growth Club about 12 or 14 months after setting up my own business. So I'd had a year of working it out, figuring it out, scratching my head on this, realizing that I really missed my PA, realizing that I really missed the accountants, and I really missed the IT department, and those marketing people, they were amazing. So there's something about realizing what you miss. And I think if I'd have thought I could have done Business Growth Club earlier, that would have been useful. When I was setting up my business, I remember a very, very experienced coach said to me, at some point you'll have to decide, do you want to run a coaching business, or do you want to be a coach? And I want to be a coach. That's my ikigai, that's my space that I want to be in. So I just want the business to run. And so talking to you guys about efficiency, about what can I contract out, how do I make this bit work, has been very useful, and has made me probably a bit more structured in how I'm thinking about it, because my heart is in the coaching work. It's not in the running of the business. So, and there are other coaches who want to run coaching empires, and that isn't me. I want to bring my value in a different way. I think there are also a couple of things that were particularly useful. So I had a couple of favorite weeks, if you like, where there was really new learning. So the week where there was a focus on really understanding who is your customer, who's your avatar customer, who is it that you really serve with what you do? Because when I started, I wanted to coach anybody that wanted to be coached for the love of coaching and for the love of adding value, or helping people find value and helping people find a way through. And yet there is a real risk with that you're trying to be too many things to too many people, and it dilutes. And actually, there's a real benefit in knowing what your offer is, because that you just get better and better and better at it. Because the more people you coach, the more you learn, and the more insights that you gain yourself, and the more you're able to focus your own development on that thing. So focusing on customer niche, still going on with that, but I've tried to articulate that this evening with you guys. Right. And then the second brilliant week, although it was deeply painful, was the pitching week, where actually learning how to articulate who I am and what I do was very powerful. And I think particularly in my own case, having gone from, tell the journey I've been on and where I'd worked before, and awards and stuff like that. There's a need to shift and pivot away from who I am into how I help you. And so that pitching week was an hour of painful journey of doing that. I say painful simply because anything that releases ego is painful. But also, if you're not naturally a salesperson, you're not naturally somebody that goes, hey, look at me, this is what I can do for you, that is really uncomfortable, particularly when, in my case, it comes from somewhere quite deep inside. So wanting to sell that and talk about what you'll get if you work with me feels still a little bit uncomfy. So I'm still learning that. But that pitching week, and I say it was deeply uncomfortable. It was a safe and supportive process. It was transformational, and it was still uncomfortable, because guess what? Transforming is uncomfortable, because we have to let go of stuff to make space for the new stuff. So
I was quite interested by what you're saying there, Sarah, in the sense of, I think anybody who's worked before, when they go into their own business, you have a transformation of silo working, the mindset, nothing wrong with that, the mindset of somebody who's got a support system around them, who does the accounts, who does the admin, who does the IT, who does the HR, and suddenly you got actually pushed into this big, brave new world where you've got to literally be like the octopus who does everything. And it takes, I would probably say, people on average about 1.5 to 2 years to make what I call the proper transformation from employee, which is a wonderful thing, to actually you've got your own business now, and therefore you've got different demands placed on your shoulders.
Yeah. Yes, and I think there's a learning curve to go through, where first of all you have to learn what has to be done. And I guess if I'd done Business Growth Club sooner in my journey, I might have learned some of that sooner and been a bit more efficient with it. There's also figuring out what you can get other people to do, and that learning to ask for help is important as well.
Yeah, well, we loved having you in the Business Growth Club, as did all the other Business Growth Club members. I mean, it's a fantastic group in terms of the connections that everybody made, and you had loads of wisdom and ideas and experience as well to share with other people, and you were a great support to them as well. And I think that's what's really nice, is that people were learning from each other, and it's like a safe environment to play around with some ideas, to say stuff out loud, and to get some genuine feedback. Yeah.
What's that word it's the word that comes around from all of us, and it's that learning environment. So we all learn from each other. I think you contributed some great bits there, Sarah, during the whole program. So what's next on the Sarah Salter Jedi route map?
Yeah. Well, I have a really interesting project at the moment for, I mentioned positive intelligence, and I'm working with a guy called Shazad Shamin, who is a lecturer at Stanford University. He's actually worked with some of the top CEOs in the world, big companies that you would know, Fortune 500 companies and so on. And Shazad is working with a number of coaches to develop us along the positive intelligence route. So that brings in this Jedi mindset. It brings in this whole idea of, how do we let go of our saboteurs? How do we name our saboteurs? How do we know what's getting in the way? How do we stop those holding us back, and create the Yoda mindset, and get rid of Darth Vader and all of those saboteurs over there? And what is brilliant about this, and I feel very, very privileged to be able to do this, is that we all know that tech has completely changed, digital. We've all gone digital, and coaching is about relationship, and digital can really help as well in coaching. And so people that I'm working with next year will have the opportunity to engage in the Positive Intelligence Coaching app, which is a 6-week structured program to develop their own positive intelligence, their own positive mindset, bringing in a number of the things that we've talked about today. And I've done the 6-week program myself. I'm now working for 6 months with Shazad to develop this with people some from the UK, some from all over the world. So that's probably my next excitement in terms of developing my own client offering, to be able to say, and working with me on a program where you can have 6 weeks intensive ongoing coaching, but a year's access to this amazing app, the Positive Intelligence with Shazad, where every day there is something new as a developmental focus. So I'm still working on that. Literally, I'm framing that in my mind. It's still, coming on this call tonight. I've missed the weekly live Q&A with Shazad. That's fine. There'll be one next week, and there's so much. So I think as coaches, we become quite intrigued by continual development, because that's how we learn and that's how we bring the best and the most to our coaching clients. And I am really quite excited to be part of the movement of helping people develop their own positive intelligence, quash their saboteurs, and actually live their own Jedi minds.
That sounds wonderful. And if I'm sure people will, hearing about all this, they'll want to learn more about you and how they can. Oh, so thank you, Richard. Another super cool show. Thank you. Thank you too for watching, Richard. That's brilliant. It's always good to see you. And so how can people find you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is I'm on LinkedIn. Sarah Salter on LinkedIn. It's dead easy. Or email me. I have a very uncomplicated email address, sarahsaltercoaching@gmail.com.
Yeah.
So very, very workmanlike, very honest. But sarahsaltercoaching@gmail.com does what it says on the tin.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So we could talk for hours. It is so fascinating. And we've definitely loved working with you, and we're really looking forward to seeing how you get on with all of that next year and seeing you go from success to success.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's going to be great.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you very much for sharing that. I love that positivity, and I'm really fascinated by what you're going to be up to next.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
It's been smashing. Cheerio. Bye.
Bye.
Back to the green room. There we go. So you can go and have a glass of wine now. Thoroughly.
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
That was quite a long show for us, but I think it's been a really good show. And
yeah,
the more we learn about how our minds work and the things that hold us back and the things that can really help us, which are often really simple things that can help us, like Sarah said, the breath work and just changing up where we are and going for a walk and, that sort of stuff is really simple and we forget to do it. But the more we can learn about ourselves, the better, I think, because
it's very sensible as well. If you think about it, in terms of businesses predominantly are run by people, and I think it's quite easy to neglect the fact that the most important asset in any business, it's not the actual computer equipment, it's not the physical assets, it's you as the business owner, how you look after yourself, how you interact. So I think it's a combo of the woo-woo, some people might call it hippie, something or other, but actually looking after yourself from well-being, in terms of how you react. You can bring that with the actual physical system. So don't think business is just about, I must have this system implemented, everything will be great. It's as much what goes on between there as it is in terms of how, what's going on.
Which sounds woo-woo and it sounds hippie, but it isn't. It's neuroscience, we've wired lots of people up, looked at lots of brains, scanned lots of brains, and really studied that. This has been studied, and we're learning more about it every single day. But it's not just nonsense. It is scientific stuff. It really happens. It's how we're wired. It's how we're made. And
this is not flat Earth theory.
No, it's not. And it's no different to understanding how other things that we use work. And we need to understand how we work and how we can best be looked after as well. So loved that with Sarah. Loved it.
That was great. So what's in store for next week then, Jo?
What's in store for next week is more on 2021, and we're thinking about big dreams, big goals, where you want to be, and why, and really sort of getting into thinking bigger, thinking bolder, and how you can actually go for doing some of those things that you've been putting on hold for a long time, how you can turn them into reality next year.
Perfect. And I think next week, that's the 15th of December, everyone. So the year is not finished. You need to be thinking about getting on the mailing list for the Business Growth Club. Pop your comments in the box here. We'll add you to the mailing list. Just contact us. Add it to there. You get some tips into your inbox. But, you know, those doors are open, early bird and all the rest of it. So until next week, have a great week. I think we should play out our wonderful theme music as well, Jo.
Yeah, we'll do that. See you next week.
See you next week, guys. And if I can actually get this thing to work. There we go. Smooth as silk. There we go.